damn, that freaking glare. Jeez. Oh, man. Let's see here. Okay. What's going on, YouTube? What is going on? Let's see. Two. Okay. We are going to be doing a little bit of surfboard repair today, even though I don't really want to do it, but has to be done. Has to be done. Come on. Is that going to help? Let's see, I don't know if that helps. Let's see if this helps. Kind of. Yeah, so we got to get this fin glossed in a little bit. We're going to use a little bit of our fiberglass, a little bit of polyester resin, paintbrush, some scissors, and yeah, so stay tuned if you want to know how to repair fiberglass like a complete amateur. Well, I'm an amateur, but at least I'm not a complete fiberglass virgin, thank God. So, have our materials here. We have our fiberglass on a roll so that I don't like to fold it, it's nicer to keep it. Ah, our Canuck, our favorite Canuck. Although, I should say Canadian, I guess we already figured out Canuck is a special type of Canadian. We have our fiberglass scissors, which you can kind of tell. I actually cleaned them off a little bit, but they sort of have like fiberglass and stuff on them. We have a sacrificial brush, which probably will not last, but it was 3 for $1, so not the biggest deal in the world. And this is the difference between me making the video and me not making the video. This popsicle stick, one of my favorite fiberglass tools. Such a great craft tool in general. I think my only supply of popsicle sticks comes from popsicles that I eat, which is sort of, you can buy them in the bag. In fact, I think when I was doing the other stuff, I think I actually got a whole bag of popsicle sticks, but they're just so nice. Yes, I know you can buy them for Christ's sake, but it's more fun to pretend like you have to eat popsicles to get them. Okay, so you may or may not remember, but our last video we were talking about measuring cups. So I just did a quick measure on this. Now I could pour the resin into this, but then I'd have to measure this on another cup and another cup and another cup, and that gets... Oh yeah, no stain on it. Okay, I guess that's true, right? I've been discovered! I'm a popsicle eater fraud! So instead of ruining my beautiful measuring cup, I'm going to leave this alone and we're going to fill our other cup. And I think I'm going to cut some fiberglass while I think about how many ounces I want. 4 is going to be way too much. I think 2, to be honest, is even probably way too much, but Yeah, 2 ounces. Maybe I'll go for an ounce of resin. I feel like an ounce is like just not quite enough, but I know 2 is too much, so maybe I'll go for like an ounce and a half. Let's see here. It's been a while since I did fiberglass, so it's kind of hard to remember. All right, so there we have some. In fact, let me label that 1. So we got our. What's an ounce? Well, I don't even know to tell you, but there's 16 ounces in a cup. I know that. My cup actually. You would approve of this cup, Hooples. It has a half a cup is 118.3 milliliters. So yeah, so 4 ounces is 118 milliliters. That's like $1.20. So divided by $1.20 over 4, it's like 30 milliliters. I guess like 28 or something. I don't know. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I don't play in milliliters, and since my table is in ounces, I don't have anything that does millimeters right. Or yeah, maybe Di Bullfrog gave me those measuring. I know he gave me those measuring cups. Maybe they're in milliliters, but anyways, let's go ahead and do a little work on our fiberglass. Let's get these little hairs off. Fiberglass view here. Okay, so what are we going to, come on. Let's see here. I think this piece right here is going to be a darn near perfect. So let's go ahead and try to clean it up a little bit. Not like I can't sand these off later, but what happens is you get a little bit of fiberglass on one of these threads, and then it starts unraveling the whole thing like a damn sweater and just drive you crazy. So just kind of clean that up. All right. Whew. So let's go ahead and cut this. I don't really like some of these edges, so I might try to sort of do a quick cleaning cut here real quick. Alright, let's see. So let's just clean this up a little bit. You know, I'm not like super worried about when it's dry. It's actually not too bad. It's more so when you're sanding it that it kind of becomes a headache. In fact, I think I'm actually out of rubber gloves. Let me see. Yeah, I'm like completely out of gloves. In fact, I should have got them at the store. But yeah, it's not too bad when you're cutting it, but when you're sanding it, that's kind of like the big, you want to not. In fact, I have, you probably can't tell, but I was like, you run your hand across the surfboard and you get like tiny, tiny little things in there. So just gonna kind of be a little careful. So let's give ourselves, let's see how. Yeah, breathing it in is not a good idea. The sanding part's kind of the big headache. You know, the fibers, for the most part, aren't just gonna like jump up. Let's see, you know, and of course Hooples gave me a bajillion masks, and they're all in a kit somewhere. Are they all downstairs? Yeah, I think every single one of them's in my car. Unless I have one in my backpack. Do I have one in my backpack? All those masks, Hooples, you gave me, Hooples, and I don't have one in my backpack. Shame on me. I gotta take some out of my bug out bag or my car. Take some out of my car kit, I think, where I shoved all that, most of that stuff. So anyways, let's see how thick we want this guy to be. But typically it's a good idea to... Trying to remember if you go big over small or small over big. I think small and then big over small, so maybe something like that, kind of. So maybe about an inch to start, or 2.54 centimeters for you metric fans, which is like the rest of the world. I know. Actually, engineering has helped me get a little bit better in metric. I still couldn't tell you how far a kilometer is if I had to, you know, if my life depended on it. I couldn't look at that tree and say how many kilometers away it was. Mile is 1.6 kilometers. Okay, I will keep that in mind. So we have one strip. Let's cut ourselves another little strip. One thing I will say too is that when you're cutting fiberglass, if you really want to have sharp scissors, but you got to be careful not to kind of pull on it, because you can really, the weave is very loose. It's not designed as a fabric. It's not designed to be terribly robust without the resin. So if I took this and like pulled on it like this way or that way, I could really kind of mess up the weave. So you almost have to treat it like it's like very, very fragile. I mean, it's not that fragile, but just to keep the weave in kind of good condition. So let's see, we're gonna have one over here like this. Have one over here like that. And I think, gosh, are we a little too long? Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is, this is where when I was talking in the last video about doing your setup beforehand, because once you start putting glass on this, you're not going to want to cut it. Not at all. Okay, so I think I'll take it right about here. Kind of come down a little bit. And then I'm going to come like this. Alright, so I've cut a little notch in it. So what that will allow me to do is I think I'll stop the glass, I'll fold it over on the front. In fact, you know what? Yeah, I think I do want to do that. So let's go ahead and notch the front of this. So now we have notched the front, so when we lay it down, we will be able to fold the top over like that, and then this part will lay like that. And yeah, we're going to be a little crack right there, but the main part is that I want to have some glass and epoxy on each of these bottom edges. So we have this piece cut like this. Let's see if I can back up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and make the opposite cuts on the other piece. Alright, so let's go like that. And then alright, so, and then we'll come just a little bit and just notch it here. I'm beginning to think 5 o'clock is not a great time for a live stream, but oh well. I mean, I guess that's 5 o'clock Pacific time. Anybody that's ahead of me, like in Mountain Time, it would be 6. Central Time, it would be 7. Eastern Time, it would be 8. So, uh-oh. Very bad connection. That's unfortunate. Alright, so this one will go like that, and kind of fold over like that. Alright. So that's those two pieces. Oh, 24-hour clock. Yeah. 1,700 hours here. It's 1717, in fact. You know, I think for the next ones, instead of getting crazy with the folding over, I think I'm just going to go smaller rectangle because I really don't need... Oh man, all this fiberglass is sticking to my Band-Aid. Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. But I don't think I need to worry too much about reinforcing this front edge or like the back edge. It's mainly just kind of this middle here. So rather than get too worried about trying to get all complicated on the next ones, I think I'm just going to... Yeah, I think I'll just kind of go a rectangular piece. Yeah. I think I like that idea. Alright, so that's looking like a good width. Very nice. We'll cut this one about 7 centimeters, about 2 inches, give or take about 2 inches or 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters. There's a really funny engineering... I mean, there's a lot of engineering stories about metric and standard causing problems, but there's one in particular where I think it was a French rail company, or somebody was designing trains for the French rail system, and the platforms were a certain width, and of course the trains had to be a certain width to be able to fit into the platform. So they made all these trains, and the first train that came into the station... like wrecked the station, just totally screwed up the train, and it was something to do with the conversion between metric and standard. They were off by like an inch or something, so the train was like an inch too wide, and it went through the station, and it just caused a goddamn catastrophe. Alright, this one is just a little bit too long. Alright, so we have our layers. This is going to be the top layer. Those will be the first layers, so we're going to kind of put those aside. Put this one over here. Put these ones over here. Going to have to work relatively quickly. You can't really take your time with fiberglass. You kind of have to have everything all laid up. You kind of know exactly where you want to go. Anyways, let's go ahead and roll our fiberglass back up. Just gonna get in the way. It comes folded, but I recommend keeping your fiberglass rolled up personally, just because it's a little nicer on the weave. Not like anything I'm doing is highly structural or anything like that, but oh, come on. That back under there. Alright, so we have our stirring rod. We have our resin ready to go. So let's go ahead and get busy. Now let me think about this again real quick. Yeah, God, an ounce is just not ounce is not going to cut it. And I know 2 ounces is way too much. At least I think 2 ounces is too much. They always, one of the things they say about fiberglass is you always want to have more goop. They call it like goop. Always want to have more stuff mixed, because if you're ever short, you kind of ruin all that work you did getting everything ready. So also it's a good idea to just kind of brush the area real quick. Make sure it's clean of junk. Alright, so I think we're ready to get busy here. Alright, back to mixing station. 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces, 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces. You know, I'm going to go 2 ounces because I think 1.5 is enough, so I'll give myself a 1/2 ounce just to be good. And who knows, maybe 2 ounces will be damn near perfect. In fact, yeah, 2 ounces might just be on the money. So let's get our hardener, get our resin. Ooh. Oh my gosh, please don't be impossible to open. Go, you little bastard. God, Jesus. That is horrendous. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to get some pliers for this. That is a tragedy. God damn it. I don't even know if I have pliers up here. That's even more of a tragedy. Sorry, God. Never have enough pliers. Oh, it's aggravating. It's so aggravating. Every time. I have like 5 or 6 pair of pliers. Lord knows why I can't keep one upstairs. Wait, I know I had those little vice grips up here. Where the hell did they go? Alright, maybe we are saved. I think we are saved. I hate to have to go downstairs in the middle of a... Oh, god damn. The lid is on tight. Good Lord. You little bastard, you. It's awful. Gunk in here. Ah, the smell of resin. Unmistakable smell. Quick note, when pouring, never pour like this. Always pour with the spout on the top. Probably knew that, but just in case you didn't. So, I'm actually going to get some, I think I'll get some alcohol real quick just to wipe the spout. Because the last time I probably didn't wipe it enough, which is why the spout got icky. We do not want icky spouts. So, we have our alcohol-soaked thingamadoober. Probably should put something protective down over the... Oh, come on, goddammit. Surfboard is too big. Where did I just put all those advertisements that I just had? Aldi is making waves in the US. They've been trying very hard to gain market share. Anyways, so back to the task at hand. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a couple ounces of resin. Oh, damn. Looks even darker than I remember. that's about good. Just like the wine bottle, we will slowly rotate to prevent... Oh, landed on the paper, all right. Go ahead and clean this off real quick. Oh, that smell is horrendous. It's okay though. Now the resin by itself doesn't really do much, so you don't have to worry too much about that getting funny, but and you know, I think I'll just not screw the cap on all the way because that was a terrible idea. I just kind of screwed on most of the way. Okay, so we have our resin. Now we're going to go to our table, and 2 ounces of resin is 19 drops of hardener. That's a lot of hardener. That's way too much. It's what they recommend, but I know for a fact that's way too much. So what I'm gonna do is probably put in 15 or 16. If I had a lot of stuff to do, I would probably go 14 or 15. If it was just a really, really small piece, maybe 16 or 17, but 19 is kind of like way overkill. 19 means in like 5 minutes the stuff's going to start getting gummy, and I know for a fact it's going to take me at least 5 or 6 minutes to kind of get through this without rushing. Moving quickly, but not rushing. So this hardener, this is like the cancer-causing stuff. You really don't want to be touching this. So let's see here. I'm going to go 15 drops, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Put that back together. And then we'll get this stirring real quick. Doesn't take a lot. In fact, I think a lot of people make the mistake of they spend so much time stirring that the stuff, you know, if you spend 2 minutes stirring and it sets in 6 minutes, you just wasted 2 minutes of time that you could have been working with it. Now, that being said, if you're working at sort of a funny angle or you're worried about the stuff running, you might want to let it set just a little bit before you start applying it, or definitely go higher on the hardener. So I think that's going to be good for our mix. Now, some people like to just kind of pour it on the workpiece. Other people like to brush it. I don't have a very large area, so I'm just going to go ahead and brush it on. And I think I'll just go ahead and brush both sides real quick. Not being afraid to go a little beyond where the fiberglass is going to go. You don't want to put a lot of it down beforehand, before the first layer of fiberglass, but you definitely do want to make sure that you have good coverage. Not only that, it's going to help fill in any sort of cracks and holes that are there from sanding or from construction in general. So get that real quick. So now that we have kind of our base layer down, I'm going to take our first piece here, being careful to line it up sort of exactly where we want it, and just kind of come in here. You always want to kind of get like the corner first. You know, don't start at the edge and then have your corner be all not aligned properly. And we're just going to kind of pat it down at first, just to make sure we're kind of in the right spot. Maybe we'll just take this and kind of go over with that real quick. Oh, come on, buddy. Oh, that does not want to does not want to work with me. It's a little frustrating. Come on, come on. I know you want to do that. Well, that's all right. That's not a key component, but it is slightly aggravating, to be honest. Come on. Don't you want to go to your home? It's your home. So now we're going to take a little bit more. We're going to come right over the top. In fact, just a little bit more. Make sure get that nice. Make sure that corner is nice and in there. Being very, very careful not to drag the fiberglass around. Once you have it kind of down and it's tacked, it's probably not going to go anywhere, but just in general, try to be careful. Okay, so now that that's looking pretty good, we're going to go ahead and get the other side on. Now, of course, we already sort of pre-wet the area, so we'll just come in here real quick. And maybe I can try to give you a slightly better camera angle, and hopefully if I can get this little SOB to stick on that side. Oh, come on, buddy. Alright, so let's see if we can get a little bit of a better camera angle here. Alright, in fact, maybe sort of kind of split the difference. Alright, so just kind of come in here, make sure we get it in the corner. The strength comes not just from the fiberglass and the resin, but actually having it be in good contact with the rest of the piece. You don't want a bunch of air gaps in between all this stuff. So getting it real tight and up close in this corner is equally important to making sure you don't have too many bubbles. And as you can see, the little strings like this, these little strings can kind of be a hassle and will potentially mess up your repair if you let them. God, if I could just, there we go. Yeah. Come on, stay over there. Stop jumping around. I should have made the tail that folded over a little bit longer, not realizing that it was going to be slightly recalcitrant, but that's okay. It's a little hard to tell right here, but I'll see if I can give you a better camera angle in a second. But the fiberglass will be a little bit light and not quite translucent before you have like full penetration, and it will tend to kind of soak in a little bit, and it should get a little darker and almost become basically almost completely transparent when the resin is completely soaked into the fiberglass. So don't just put the fiberglass on, brush it, and then walk away. You really need to make sure that it's in there. And don't be afraid to come back and keep getting it in that corner, because every time you kind of brush it, it sort of wants to pull it out of the corner, pull it off the front of the fin. If you end up having some parts that you don't really like or that aren't really as clean as you would have hoped for, don't worry too much about it, because you're going to be able to come back later and sand and kind of, try to touch that up a little bit. In fact, while I'm here, I'm sort of tempted to do work on a couple of other parts. In fact, I might just do that. I wonder, can I... Yeah, you know what? I think I'll pull a little bit of an audible. I'm going to pull a little bit of an audible and come in here like that. I should have sanded this down a little bit more, but that's okay. Ooh, Ooh, that was a lot. That was a little too much. I mean, this board honestly is so freaking old and so kind of in a rough condition that any amount of repairs that I do, it's going to be kind of better off than it was. Nevertheless, I am trying to do somewhat quality work. Go ahead and get this guy on there. Yeah, see, with the small pieces, they really want to kind of walk around. Yeah, this one's almost too... In fact, let me steal that real quick. Put this over here. There we go. That's a little better. Come on. Don't fight me. Oh, stop. That's fine. Yeah, that's a little... God damn, this stupid little stringer is just like hanging off here, messing everything up. There we go. Come on. Come on. Okay, so now let's come back and get our other main patches rocking. Are we still decent camera angle? Yep. So let's go ahead and we'll put just a little more down in preparation for our next piece. Kind of drag it over just a little bit. Always want to start in the center and then work your way out. Alright, so now that we have that kind of tacked up, we're going to come back and just real quick, you can kind of see how like this is light and that's a lot more clear, and like right here, you know, you can kind of barely tell. So you definitely want to make sure that you're using enough resin to really, you know, don't just brush it and walk away. You really need to kind of ooch it and pooch it and smoosh it in there. So that's ooching, pooching, and smooching it in there. If you forget one of those steps, you're going to regret it, and you're going to have a piece with a bunch of transparent looking fiberglass on it. Man, this edge just does not want to stay pretty for me. Breaks my heart. I'm tempted to kind of put one over the front, but I don't know if it's going to really... That front piece is really kind of a nightmare to... Yeah, I'm going to have to come back later and do something about that. I don't know. That's not really liking how the front of this is coming out. Gosh, I wonder if I can sort of... just kind of come over the front like that. Hate to kind of get this stuff all over my hands, but I need to get a better seal on this. Come on. Yeah, this is definitely not going to be one of my prettiest repairs, but it's okay. Doesn't need to be gorgeous, just needs to be strong. And to be honest, you really can kind of sand up a lot of this and clean it out a little bit. Come on, can I just get this a little flatter? Just does not want to think, oh, and then of course sometimes you get these little hairs. Oh, see, we're already starting to gel up a little bit, are we? Yeah, just a little bit. So let's go ahead and, so it reacts with the fiberglass. So what happens is after you put the resin on the fiberglass, it kind of starts behaving a little bit funny, so to speak. Let's get this guy in here. Drag it up just a little bit. There we go. Ooch, 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 ooch. Come start at the middle, so we'll kind of tamp it that way, tamp it this way. Tamp it back into the corner, tamp it against the fin, from the center out, from the center out, and then come back over it with even more resin. I'm really glad at this point I didn't put in 19 drops of hardener, because at this point with 19 drops of hardener, everything in this cup is going to start turning into jello. Or not jello, but like jello that starts to get harder and harder the longer you wait. Oh, get off that. Get off that, you. Go. So, let's see here, if we could just get this piece to kind of not be jumping off the front of this, that would be really nice. You know, and sometimes you try to repair a certain section and you end up sanding it and kind of realizing that it didn't really work out that great, but maybe don't hold the cup right under my nose. Oh, see, I can see just a little bit right here where it's kind of translucent, so it needs just a little more. In fact, let's see if we can. Just gotta make sure this edge is nice and saturated. At a certain point, you kind of have to stop, because the more you mess with it, the worse it gets. And we are right about at that point right now where everything kind of gets so funky and sticky that I try to smooth something out and it kind of screws up the whole area. So what I'll often do is sometimes I'll just kind of take a look around on the board, see if there are any other parts that could use a little bit of love. In fact, I think I kind of accidentally cracked the front a little bit when I was moving it earlier. Oh, God darn it. Oh, this tripod is the most aggravating thing on the planet. As much as I need a bunch of resin all over my phone, which I don't. Alright, so what is going on up here? Let's see. Little delamination here, unfortunately. The whole board is really old and brittle and UV damaged, and it's a little bit of a shame, but so I think that's gonna do it for now. Clean up a couple drips here, maybe fill in this little dent. God, tempted to try to save this brush, but I'd have to use like a half a can of rubbing alcohol to save it, I think. Alright, so let's go ahead and... Oh my gosh, this camera's hot and I hate this tripod right now. So let's review real quick. And just out of curiosity, how much extra did I have? Wow. So I had... Oh, very cool, Hooples. By the way, let me see if I can catch up to some of these messages. I've really been kind of missing them. Thank you, Inspired John. Yeah, it never goes right when you're teaching, right? Buy a new one. Ha! A new longboard's like $300. I got this for 60 bucks. Wouldn't you just cut them off after it is dried? Yeah, so you're not going to cut this after it's dried. You're going to like have to grind it off or something. It becomes really, really hard. You're not going to cut it with scissors when you're dried. Let's see. Good angle. Oh, Hooples. Okay, so... Well, I promise if you practiced as much as I did, Hooples, you would have the same fiberglass skills I did. Yeah, fiberglass is still really new for me. Oh, what's up, Kaylin? Thanks for joining. Alright, so in review, we mixed up some fiberglass, we applied it to the area, then we put some fiberglass on, then we put a little more resin on, then we put a second layer on, so we have 2 layers on this side, and same over on this side, we have 2 layers on this side. And if you kind of take a look here, you'll notice it's, for the most part, pretty well impregnated. You can kind of see like some of these areas are just a little bit lighter, and sometimes it just kind of works out like that, but we went a little bit above the joint. You know, you don't want to just have like a centimeter above and a centimeter to the side. You kind of want to go a little bit over because you're going to sand, you're going to feather the edges, and it just kind of helps make working with it easier. So for example, Hooples, you're talking about cutting it. Like these little strands, or this, come on, autofocus. Yeah, I mean, I got sandpaper, you could Dremel it or something, but if I try to cut this little strand, it could potentially catch on the scissors, and as I pull the scissors away, it could move this entire piece of fiberglass. So that's what I was saying about, you kind of have to know when to just stop and let the, God, my autofocus just does not want to work right now. I don't know why, but, and you can tell like it looks a little bit bumpy and it kind of looks ugly from this angle, but after it dries, it'll dry a lot clearer. It'll look a little more like that. Where's my tripod? It'll dry a little bit clearer. You kind of sand it, you know, just like actually kind of similar to the drywall. When you do the drywall stuff, you always want to kind of have, like if you're doing a patch, you know, don't be afraid to kind of mud or plaster a little bit proud, so to speak, you know, like plaster a little bit high and then kind of come down flat. Because there's nothing worse than doing a repair, realizing that you're still low, and then having to come back and put in a really, really tiny amount. Whatever type of repair you're doing, fiberglass, plaster, stucco, if you try to attach a really small amount to the work, you're going to have adhesion problems. Now, it's not always it's not always true with like paint or something, but typically you want to go proud, so that way you don't have to come back and sort of have like a really, really thin section. So I don't mind glopping it on a little bit thick, especially like around the front and around the back edge, because that way I know that when I come back and sand it, it's going to be nice and smooth. And just for entertainment purposes, I'll show you this other board that I got for also for $60. Actually, No, I paid 60 for this one, and I think I gave that guy like 30 for this one, because I think I was going to give him 40. He like didn't meet me. He was moving or something. He was busy, and I kind of was being a jerk. I was being a little bit of a jerk to him, to be honest. I was like, you know, I said I was going to meet you, and I don't know why you're not here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I was kind of frustrated. Like, I told him I was going to meet him at 5, and he was busy moving at the house or something, whatever. I don't like when people waste my time. And I saw it, like, you know, when are you going to be back or whatever? And he said, well, the surfboard's in the backyard. So if you just want to, like, go in and hop the fence and leave the money under a pot or whatever, like, he felt kind of bad. I was kind of giving him a little bit of guilt trip, maybe because I wanted him to give me a better discount. But I think I said I was going to give him like $40 for the surfboard. I ended up giving him 30 because he said, you can, you know, I'll work with you on it. If he would have said, like, give me 40 or get the hell out of here, I guess I would have gotten the hell out of there. No, I would have still given him 40. But I don't know if you can tell, this surfboard was broken completely in half. Completely in half. So it was broken completely in half. This whole patch here was completely delaminated. This is all a patch. And maybe it's a little more obvious if I flip it over. Oh, being careful not to damage the fins. Yeah, it's a little more obvious on this side. Yeah, always got to be careful of those fins. So it's actually a fairly decent manufacturer, McTavish, somewhat popular surfboard brand. But as you can tell here, the seam goes all the way across. So whoever owned this surfboard had a bad day in the ocean or something, snapped the whole thing in two, but at least was liked the board enough that they ended up, and you can tell the spar, the wooden spar in the middle kind of split through the sticker. But they liked their board enough that they actually got it somewhat professionally repaired. The repair looks pretty nice, to be honest. And you can tell here more delamination. Got a skin graft, so to speak. The whole I don't know if it was from when it got split in two or what, but yeah. You know, and of course I don't mind because I mean they're both actually perfectly functional as far as surfboards. This one is a little bit heavier and a little bit thicker, has a little bit more flotation, probably better for me because I'm not a very good surfer. I've surfed less than half a dozen times in my life. This surfboard is a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter, a little less flotation. You sink a little lower in the water, but still a pretty decent surfboard. And now, of course, now that I have the two fins on it, the center fin comes out. I have them out because I will probably not be using them in my wind surf Moran configuration. And of course, here we have all our little fiberglass pieces that I'll have to sort of very carefully. In fact, really great way to get this stuff. Maybe let me flip the surfboard back over. I'll show you a cool way to pick up all this fiberglass. Because trying to sweep it and like broom it or vacuum it, those are all kind of bad ideas. Let's put you back over here. That, and then take our resin. Oh wow, this resin does not like this cup. Did you guys see that? I don't think you guys saw that, but this resin is losing a fight with this cup. Shit, I gotta... Oh shit, fuck. Pardon my French, but we have a resin emergency. So I guess these plastic cups, whatever number 6 is, they do not like the resin, but wow, that was almost that was almost a disaster. Oh well. As long as I do the repair in less than 10 or 15 minutes, I guess I'm good, right? Alright, let's move this out of the way. So get the surfboard, your BJ surfboard back up over here. God, just so much space. You know, I'm thinking if I end up staying at this place, I think what I'm gonna do, and you know, I don't know, $1,000 a month is a lot of money for rent. Even if I was working full time, it's like a third of my income or more. But what I would do theoretically if I was going to live here is I think I would have some kind of rope system, just like drill a hole up there, put a hook up there, drill a hole up here. What's up, Bayou Preppers? Drill a hole up there, put a hook up there, and then sort of have a rope with like 3 loops in it. And the top loop on each side, I would put the BJ board because it's the smallest one. The middle loop, I would put the blue board. And then the biggest loop, I would put the windsurfing board. So that would probably be how I store these boards, because storing them on the ground, you can kind of tell they take up like, you know, that much space, which by the way, this is essentially the orientation of how they're going to go on my car. Believe it or not, this entire windsurfing boat contraption is designed to go on top of and inside my car. The sail and the mast and all that folds up. We got part of the frame right here. We got part of the frame right here. We got the boom right here. The mast, the red mast right there, 2-piece fiberglass mast. So that was kind of the idea, was that I don't have a trailer, even though I have a tow hitch. I haven't installed it on my car. I don't have a trailer, don't have a tow hitch, don't have anywhere to store a boat, although I could park it in my carport, but then I'd have to park the car somewhere else. And I don't know what it is to get a monthly permit, but I think it's the dumbest idea in the world that I should have to pay to park in front of my apartment. I just can't believe that the city of Alhambra says, oh, even if you live here, you can't park in front of your own damn apartment. How stupid is that? Like, you know, people think that those who gripe about the government trying to take your money and control your life are kind of like crazy tinfoil hat people. But when you can't park in front of your own house overnight without a permit, that's just ridiculous, in my opinion. That's completely ridiculous. I would never buy a house in a city with that kind of law, but I guess people do buy houses out here because they don't want other people parking in front of the street. It's sort of like the city has become the HOA. So normally the HOA would say, you know, oh, you got to put your car in the driveway or whatever. But now the city has become the HOA. So it just drives me crazy. If I ever ran for Alhambra City Council, I'd try to veto that law. For sure. Okay, now. Noise here that tenants of my apartment complex may have to get parking stickers and they would supposedly be free. Now, see, I don't really have a problem with that, because if you want to kind of, you know, parking complexes typically have limited parking. So I can understand that the apartment's either trying to kind of keep track of how many people are parking there, or they're trying to limit it, or they don't want a bunch of guests parking all over the place. Because some people, like my neighbors, in fact, let's take a look at the car that doesn't belong here. If you see, can't really see because there's kind of like a lot of sun, but that Datsun to the right of the Toyota has not moved in 1.5 years. My neighbor hoards cars. He has that car that's broken down that he hasn't touched. He has he has 2 Hondas that he hoards that he hasn't touched. Yeah, we don't have cameras for security, so it's hard for the manager to see who's parking in the lots. Well, the easiest way is would just be to like make all the tenants register their car, not register, but, you know, sign up their cars with a landlord. So if you want to have a car, that's fine. You know, the limit is X cars per tenant. And then if there are any cars on the property for like more than a few hours or overnight or whatever the rule is, then we might try to tow the cars. And of course, it's going to cause people issues like, oh, you know, I borrowed my aunt's car because my car broke down and, you know, I'm using her car for 2 weeks, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, some tenants will like hoard cars and have cars that they never use. They're working on them. They don't run. Some, you know, people hoard a lot of different stuff, and some people hoard cars. So I can definitely understand the desire to kind of limit the amount of vehicles on a property, but if they were going to start charging you for parking, that would be kind of aggravating, right? In fact, I would honestly love, yeah, exactly, a service loaner. And in that case, they should just kind of have something where you can, like get like you can just email, print something out, or put a note or send an email to management. Like, hey, they could tell the tenants, like, look, if you're ever in a car that's not on our approved car list, just put a note on your car, say who owns the car, like not who owns the car, but which unit is responsible. Like, oh, I'm John Smith, oh, your trike, that's right, you're looking for a trike. Would you have to get a parking sticker for your trike? Would they tow your trike? Bastards if they do. That'd be terrible. All right, so let's get back to our fiberglass shard remediation. No, but you want a sticker anyways? Who doesn't like stickers, right? Okay, so we're gonna take our tape and we're gonna go stick. This is one of my favorite ways to get rid of fiberglass because you try to shake it, you try to vacuum it, broom it, sweep it, it just turns into a disaster. But tape, it really likes sticking to tape. I guess most things like sticking to tape. Yep, just like animal hair, just like dog hair, just like cat hair. Although I find the best way to get rid of cat hair is just to invite a lot of friends over, and then all the cat hair gets on their clothes. Right? I know what I'm talking about, Hooples. Wait, Hooples, how many cats do you have, Hooples? I know you have the 2 dogs. Do you have any cats, Hooples? You have to have a cat, right? You're Hooples' cat. How could Hooples' cat not have a cat? That would be like the biggest fraud in the world, right? Of course Hooples' cat has a cat. I'm not talking about... Oh, just one kitty cat. I've been really thinking I want a farm cat, but the problem is I need a farm first because I can't do litter boxes and I'm not... Oh my Lord, Hooples. Well, who am I to judge? I have 3 surfboards. Maybe I'm hoarding surfboards or, board-related things. I've actually been trying to get rid of junk recently. Get rid of extra pieces of wood, boxes, all sorts of stuff. In fact, my same neighbors that hoard the cars, they had about 2 months of recycle. Yesterday I took, yeah, well that's the plan. But yesterday I spent about 5 minutes and I filled up 2 blue bins completely with all their recycle. I just took it and put it in the bins and said, F it, I'm not looking at this crap anymore. I told my landlords about it a week ago. I actually just sent them an email recently mentioning the city code about hoarding trash and debris and how it's a fire hazard because thing is, I don't, this is really stupid, right? But I don't have renter's insurance. It's only 20 bucks a month, but that's still 20 bucks a month that comes out of my food, I just spent $33 on food. So $20 a month is like 2/3 of a week of food or something like that. I just don't like unnecessary expenses. Well, I would. The only problem is it's part of my whole windsurfmoran boat. So I can't give it away because I'd be giving away. Besides the fact that when I got both of these surfboards, I picked them up from Santa Monica, which is on the coast. And I picked them up between like 3 and 5 o'clock and I spent, oh God, it was like the worst day in traffic I've had since I moved here. But I spent like 2.5 hours driving from the coast to my house, which is about 30 minutes away. Oh, I absolutely could, Kaylin. I absolutely could. Well, the thing is, it's on private property, though. So essentially, it's if the car was on the street, California is essentially a 72-hour abandoned vehicle law. So if the car is not, if nobody's messing with the car for 72 hours, what they do is they come chalk it, and then they come back 72 hours later, and if it's still there, they can tow it. But the thing is, it has to be in the same location. So what people do is they'll just move their car down the street. 3 days later, then they'll move the car up the street the other way 3 days later. And, you know, based on the code, the towing company and the code enforcement people can't really do anything about it, which is, you know, I mean, honestly, I don't think, the problem in general is that we're stacking people too close together. You know, in the country, you don't really have a problem with people having 5 cars, because if you're on an acre and your neighbor's on an acre, you're on 5 acres and your neighbor's on 5 acres. 5 cars and 5 acres is nothing. But when you start stacking people up like dominoes, and every single person has to have 2 or 3 cars because they just have to have 2 or 3 cars, you know, California, when they developed, you know, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s, when we had all this development rush, there wasn't a lot of laws about how many parking spaces you had to have for your unit. Even in the city, if you're in the city of LA, let's say I wanted to build an apartment complex with 100 units, I don't have to put 100 parking spots in that apartment complex. There's a certain number of parking spots I have to put in the apartment complex, and I have to do a, you know, feasibility study or something of how many people I think are going to have cars and how many people are going to use mass transit, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is all these multifamilies go up all over the city, and you have people with illegal in-law suites in the back, and you got 2 or 3 families per house in some of the poorer areas. And when you have 2 families per house and every family has 3 cars, that's 6 cars on the street, and they might be 1 or 2 cars in the driveway, if there's even a driveway. Not even all the homes in California have driveways or parking areas. So California is a goddamn traffic nightmare. Not just a traffic nightmare, but a parking nightmare. In fact, if you tell someone that you can go somewhere and there's free parking, or parking is really easy and available, like, they won't even believe you. They'll be like, what? I can park for free? I can get parking? You know? Oh, yeah, don't even get me started on that. Parking in the yards. Yeah, it's just too much in the city. Too many people, too many cars, too much pollution, too much noise, too many walls, and not enough windows. You know, it's not, like, I enjoy my life. I don't have a bad life, but when I walk outside, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel like all of a sudden I'm free. There's more light. I can think about, you know, I can think about life. But when I'm in here and it's like dark and shady, it wears on me psychologically. And I don't really talk about this with a lot of people. I don't know if I have, you know, seasonal affective disorder or whatever, but I definitely enjoy being in the natural light of the outdoors about 10 times more than I enjoy being indoors. I basically can't stand being indoors, but the problem is when you're an engineer. Oh, what's up, JFM? I don't know how to say your name, but in Toronto, you'd be towed within 24 hours. Yeah, well, you know, damn Canucks. Damn Canadians. 24 hours. So you can't park your car in the street more than 24 hours? Well, that's like Toronto City. Or, you know, the city of Toronto as opposed to like rural Toronto, I guess. Rural Toronto. Oh my gosh. You know, I kind of want to like keep doing this live thing, but I don't know. I've got my phone, I feel like it's going to kind of die, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to do much more than just a little bit of surfboard work. Yeah, I mean, every permits are time limited. You have to move the car from one side to the other. Oh, that's always fun. Oh, in fact, what I really need to do before I start getting high from this damn resin is I got to turn the... in fact, I think I'm going to go... I think we're going to go high on that. Whew! Damn, that resin is a little bit too much. A little bit too much. Maybe we'll go back to our bedroom view real quick. I think we're going to wrap it up because I'm probably going to run out of data ultimately on my phone. I'm probably going to run out of can only upload so much data. But anyways, maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll come back a little bit later. Dad and I lay Formica that, oh, contact cement. Man, if you're doing Formica stuff, I'm impressed. I can't personally stand like having to do that laminate floor stuff. Or I guess you're saying Formica like countertop. You're probably talking about countertops. But yeah, I've never really done countertops or never really done Formica stuff. Yeah, I mean all industrial products smell like garbage pretty much. They're not, you know, some glues aren't too bad, but the thing is, for the glue to dry, it has to be volatile, so something has to evaporate, and whatever's evaporating is probably not water. It's probably going to be some super nasty chemical. So you always have super nasty chemical smells. You know, there's a reason I didn't become a stop, Hooples. There's a reason I didn't become a surfboard repair person full-time, because those guys just breathe in fiberglass dust and get fiberglass all over their stuff all day. Yeah, ventilation's important, but the bottom line is, you know, unless you have a respirator and like really, really good fans, you just kind of end up always smelling it. Makes you like pipe in some interesting ways. That's funny. Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, just like Mad Hatters, you know, any people that work in construction. In fact, I remember, maybe I'll share this story before I go. I remember a couple, like 3-4 years ago, I was doing some work in a unit, actually at the same apartment complex that I lived at. I ended up convincing the guy, the contractor guy, like, hey, I've got some spare time. I know a little bit about construction. Let me help you do some work. Okay, no big deal. So we were painting and, you know, priming and doing prep and stuff like that. Not the worst thing in the world. But one day of the week, or one day during the week, he was sanding. Crack me up, Jay. Yeah, probably not good to drive either like that. But we were in this room, and I don't know why he wanted me in the room. He wanted me to hold something, or, you know, hold a vacuum or something. I don't know, but I didn't have a mask. You know, I should have had a mask, but I didn't have a mask at the time, and he didn't have a mask, and he was sanding. He was like grinding the crap out of some sheetrock or something, and the whole room just filled up with dust. And, you know, me being a little bit dust averse, I just kind of walked out, and he got a little bit pissed and heated, and, you know, he didn't really yell at me or do anything like that, but he kind of walked off in a huff and got in his car and, I don't know, did something. But it's like, look, buddy, you're not paying me enough to ruin my lungs by breathing, like, I wouldn't say pounds, but huge quantities of dust that's not going to just magically find its way out of my lungs, you know. 15 or whatever dollars an hour that he was paying me is not remotely sufficient enough for me to ruin my lungs for you for the next 10 minutes. So sorry, I don't want to ruin my lungs. I actually want to have a future, you know, where I can breathe. So that was the story of when I didn't have a mask and I pissed off my boss by not wanting to suck a bunch of dust. And he, you know, but that's just kind of the attitude of construction workers. Like, they don't wear gloves, they don't wear goggles, they don't wear ear protection. I mean, believe me, when I used to work construction, guys would cut wood without earplugs, without eye protection. Like, almost nobody ever wore a respirator or anything. It just kind of like blew me away. Like, don't you want to keep your hearing? Don't you want to, you know, I don't know. Don't you want to, like, keep your fingers and, you know, I don't know. Don't you want to take care of yourself? But apparently, you know, you got to be tough to be a construction worker. So they kind of just, you know, I don't know. I can't do that stuff. But yeah, sorry, I had the speaker on. Really, Hooples? That's really interesting. My uncle's partially. Oh, you know, let me turn off the AC real quick. There you go. That should be a little bit better. Coffee real quick. But yeah, my uncle was a pilot for years in the military, and yes, I have the AC on. Well, the thing is, it's nice outside, Hooples, but oh my gosh, why is this autofocus not working? It's nice outside, Hooples, but my whole apartment gets kind of stuffy and awful. So if I don't keep the AC on between now and 9 o'clock, my apartment will get to like 75 degrees, and like a stuffy, uncomfortable 75 degrees. And then even if I open all the windows at 9 o'clock, by 12 o'clock, with all the windows open and the fans on, it'd be like 70 degrees still. The minimum temperature of my apartment without the AC is give or take about 70 degrees from now through, you know, whenever. That's why I hate stucco. I hate not having a lot of windows. And actually, all the apartments kind of close together and two apartment complexes next to each other, it sort of creates this like little bubble where we don't get a lot of as much fresh air as we might normally. So, like, I'll walk up and down the street, it'll be super nice. As soon as I get into my complex, I can feel it be several degrees warmer. It's quite unpleasant, to be honest, but, you know. First world problems, right? First world problems. Your dad was in construction. That's cool, Jay. Very cool. Oh, well, I would love to do, you know, I'm really not set up great to do streaming because my phone sort of, I only have limited data with my phone, so I might be running out of data, and it doesn't, I'm actually uploading this via the 4G, so rather than using my internet, which would make a lot of sense, I have to use my, oh, there we go, now our resolution is up a little bit better. But, yes, we will, Jay. If an EMP hits, yeah, we just have to hope that it doesn't, you know. Luckily, we got a lot of, we have a big military and a lot of radar and a lot of wonderful men and women serving in the military. In fact, Tammy Jo Stoltz, the lady who landed the Southwest plane, was a Navy pilot. Tammy Jo Schultz or Stoltz? Schultz. S-H-U-L-T-S. She was a fighter pilot in the Navy, and when you're in a Navy fighter pilot, you have to land on a carrier. So Air Force pilots get to land on a runway that doesn't move. Navy pilots have to land on a runway that's doing this, and that's crazy. That is some crazy, sketchy stuff. So she's a hero in my book for landing that plane with that. And you know, I like sitting next to the window, I have to admit. And I don't know if I'll ever feel as comfortable sitting next to the window now because I don't want to get sucked out a window. Yeah, we are ready, Hooples, but it's still better if we don't, you know, we don't go to war. Yeah, exactly. Long runway doesn't move. Short runway moves around all the time. And not only that, but the Air Force can line up straight with their runway. The Navy, they typically don't land like in line with the runway. The runway is sort of like if you're looking at the back of the carrier, you know, they have the 4 catapults, right? 2 of them are like this and 2 of them are like that. They typically don't land in this direction because there's, you know, they kind of want to make sure that they miss the tower and everything. So what they do is they come and land on the side direction so that if they have to do a go around, they're not worried about just kind of what they train to do. So they're landing on a runway they're trying to line up to a runway that's kind of crooked the whole time, which is not super awesome. And I'm pulling some fiberglass off my hand. That's the only problem with fiberglass, is that it sort of sticks to everything. God damn it. Oh, it's aggravating. Anyways. Yes, and did you know, Kaylin, that when they land, they actually gun it, because if they waited to give it full throttle until they knew that they missed the hook, they might not have enough throttle to jump back off the deck. Yeah, arrestor hooks and all that stuff are super interesting. In fact, the new carriers have maglev launch catapults instead of the steam-powered launch catapults. So, very, very cool stuff. Doolittle raid. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, pilots are very brave. I wanted to be a pilot. I still do. I don't know about a professional pilot, but I definitely want to get my pilot's license. Took ground school years and years ago. Never took the test. Shame on me. Attack of Tokyo, Balls of Steel. Yeah. My grandfather, not my grandfather, but my uncle's father was shot down over Europe. Shot down and ended up ditching the plane and landing, I want to say, in Sweden or Switzerland. One of those. I can't remember. Yeah, he survived getting shot out of the sky. And I want to say he kind of hid in the country that he landed until the end of the war. I don't know for sure. I think he was in an occupied country, so perhaps it wasn't the safest thing for him to try to get back, to his unit or whatever. Which side was he fighting for? Well, that's a good question. I guess it's not that obvious, but if Sweden was occupied, he was probably fighting for the West. He was absolutely fighting for the West. He was in the Army Air Corps. Swiss were neutral. Okay, yeah, good point. But the thing is, where he bailed out, he could have been flying over a neutral country and just bailed out over the neutral country just because he was over the neutral country. It wasn't like he was doing a bombing run on the Swiss. He might have just been flying over Switzerland because that was the route back home or whatever. Yeah, probably. He probably was interned. That sounds about right. And then my uncle flew in the Air Force for 22 years. Spent a little time in Vietnam. Oh, they weren't allowed to fly over neutral countries. Okay. But yeah, my uncle flew C-119 boxcars and probably gave the Vietnamese a little more grief than they wanted to deal with. Not to make too light of the situation. C-119. I believe it's called a flying boxcar. Yeah, they're gunships essentially, or at least he was in a gunship. Their transport, the planes can do a variety of things: cargo, transport, etc. But he was on the gunship planes that they got the guns coming out the window, and they fly around the target and go and yeah, wreck everything on the ground with very big, scary guns. I think being a pilot's cool. I don't necessarily think, war is cool, but being a pilot I think is cool. So, in fact, I wonder, I don't know if we have any preppers in our community that are pilots or that fly. That would be really, really interesting. Yeah, you know, a lot of countries sold a lot of things to a lot of different countries during the war. A lot of companies and a lot of countries. Companies that are popular now sold things to Nazi Germany during the war. The war is a racket, and there were a lot of people making money during the war from both sides, without a doubt. I'm not nearly up on it enough. Yeah, exactly, Kaylin. I'm not up on it enough to really speak intelligently about it, but yeah, war is an ugly thing. That's why I hope that we're not going to be. I should say not getting into Syria, but we already sort of have, you know. And I don't really want to get that political right now, but yeah, it has been that way all through human history, you know. That's why the bankers were never worried about the housing collapse, because you know they just take your house and yeah, they lose 100,000 or so on the loan, but they'll sell it to somebody else, and that's why it's good to be a banker. Good to be a banker. Yeah, World War II is a crazy. World War II is just kind of a crazy, insane war. I mean, you know, you see videos and you see movies about it, and it's one thing to look at it as a piece of history, but I'm sure to be living in the moment, you know, to be worried about the Japanese maybe reaching California, or to worry about German U-boats, you know, showing up on the shores of New York or something. To be on the front lines, to be dealing with, you know, having bullets flying past you. Just terrifying, terrifying thing, in my opinion. Yeah, Kaylin, that's a good point. You know, there was some there was a little bit of like funny business like that going on. In fact, one of the things that caused a lot of problems was the notes. The note being your mortgage kept getting passed around. So company A, you'd get a loan with company A, then they would sell your note or your mortgage in a group to company B, or maybe they would have somebody else service it, and then your note would get sold to company C. And it keeps switching between where you have to send your payments, who you're calling, who customer services. Kind of a big nightmare. Yeah, imagine being in Hawaii when Pearl Harbor attacks happened. I really can't. Especially because, you know, hindsight's 2020. So looking back, it's easy for us to say there's no way the Japanese could have sustained a long-term attack on Pearl Harbor. But at the time, I don't think the public necessarily realized that the Pearl Harbor attack was sort of like a one-off thing. You know, it was kind of a one-way kamikaze deal where it wasn't something that was going to be ongoing. But I think it definitely scared the crap out of the public. Yeah, fear, panic, paranoia, absolutely. House raids on the wrong houses still happen. Yeah, well, everyone makes mistakes, law enforcement included, except sometimes when people with guns make mistakes, things go a little worse than normal. All right, all. I've been kind of going here for like an hour and a half. I'm a little bit tired. I haven't really eaten a lot or drank a lot of water today, but thanks for watching. Thanks for looking at my surfboard repair. Appreciate a little bit of conversation. You know, one of these days I'm going to figure out like a regular day or so to do a live stream. In fact, I think last week I did a Wednesday live stream, and there was a fair amount of people. So what I really need to do is find another prepper who wants to do a Wednesday live stream, and then like hit it up before or after him, so that we can get like a bunch of people kind of ready to be watching the live stream. Not that I mind doing it for like 4 or 5 people, but I just find that it's a little more like active and engaging when you have like a couple dozen people. will give a JIT will give a buzz. I don't know if I know what that means, but anyways, thanks for watching, guys and gals. Keep commenting, and subscribing to me and all our other prepper friends. Keep working on your projects and keep prepping. See you next time.